version. So that's Proverbs 10, reading from NIV. Feel free to raise your hand if you don't have a Bible here with us today. There'll be people coming around, giving around your Bible. Alrighty. So this is Proverbs 10, starting from verse 1. The Proverbs of Solomon. A wise son brings joy to his father, but a foolish son brings grief to his mother. Ill-gotten treasures have no lasting value, but righteousness delivers from death. The Lord does not let the righteous go hungry, but he thwarts the craving of the wicked. Lazy hands make for poverty, but diligent hands bring wealth. He who gathers crops in summer is a prudent son, but he who sleeps during harvest is a disgraceful son. Blessings crown the head of the righteous, but violence overwhelms the mouth of the wicked. The man of the righteous is used in blessings, but the name of the wicked will rot. The wise in heart accept commands, but a chattering fool comes to ruin. Whoever walks in integrity walks securely, but whoever takes crooked paths will be found out. Whoever winks maliciously causes grief, and a chattering fool comes to ruin. The mouth of the righteous is a fountain of life, but the mouth of the wicked conceals violence. Hatred stirs up conflict, but love covers over all wrongdoings. Wisdom is found on the lips of the discerning, but a rod is for the back of one who has no sense. The wise store up knowledge, but the mouth of a fool invites ruin. The wealth of the rich is their fortified city, but poverty is the ruin of the poor. The wages of the righteous is life, but the earnings of the wicked are sin and death. Whoever heeds discipline shows the way to life, but whoever ignores correction leads others astray. Whoever conceals hatred with lying lips and spreads slander is a fool. Sin is not ended by multiplying words, but the prudent hold their tongues. The tongue of the righteous is choice silver, but the heart of the wicked is of little value. The lips of the righteous nourish many, but fools die for a lack of sense. The blessing of the Lord brings wealth without painful toil for it. A fool finds pleasure in wicked schemes, but a person of understanding delights in wisdom. What the wicked dread will overtake them. What the righteous desire will be granted. When the storm has swept by, the wicked are gone, but the righteous stand firm forever. As vinegar to the teeth and smoke to the eyes, so are sluggards to those who send them. The fear of the Lord adds length to life, but the years of the wicked are cut short. The prospect of the righteous is joy, but the hopes of the wicked come to nothing. The way of the Lord is a refuge for the blameless, but it is the ruin of those who do evil. The righteous will never be uprooted, but the wicked will not remain in the land. From the mouth of the righteous comes the fruit of wisdom, but a perverse tongue will be silenced. The lips of the righteous know what finds favor, but the mouth of the wicked only what is perverse. This is the word of the Lord.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Jerry. And good morning, everyone. My name's Matt. I'm one of the pastors here at CPE Church. Keep your Bibles open to Proverbs chapter 10. We'll get onto that shortly. But I was just thinking about Proverbs 10 and the sort of life that it depicts and the things and the places and the levels that it engages with. It tends to engage on a very kind of day-to-day life kind of way. Now, I was thinking about that because I personally always find myself drawn to big, epic TV shows. So, this one's going around the most. It's called The Rings of Power, based in the Lord of the Rings universe. It's a show. It actually does start getting good somewhere in the second season for those who are like, first one was really boring. But what I love about it is because it is so big. The scale is huge. There's kingdoms at war with each other. There's magical powers invested into jewelry, and there's good and there's evil, and there's the temptations of power all the way through the series. Now I'm quite a daydreamer, and so my mind always drifts to the in which good and evil are fought out. But the truth is, life's probably a little bit more like a sitcom, isn't it? Much more like a sitcom, much more like daily life at work or at home, with your flatmates, at the cafe, with your kids, that kind of thing. Because most of life isn't big, grand adventures with very clear good and evil, where there's, enemies to fight and victories to pursue and all the rest. Actually, a lot of life looks very ordinary, very mundane. But the truth is that just because it's mundane doesn't mean that it's any less important. It doesn't mean that the temptations aren't there. It doesn't mean that the options and the battles of what it means to kind of live that out rightly don't exist there. See, I think that's one of the things that as we engage with Proverbs, and you might have got that sense as Jerry was reading out for us, Proverbs is very much engaging with the world of the sitcom more than the world of the Rings of Power. It's much more in the daily living, on the kind of short, tiny little things. And Seinfeld in particular was famous for being kind of this whole show about the most minute moments that happen in life. Now, we're going to be unpacking some of those Proverbs shortly, but over the last couple of weeks, we've been really unpacking the first 9 chapters of Proverbs, which is a bit like an extended introduction to this middle section that's coming up. So, Proverbs sort of roughly breaks up into these 3 sections. The first 9 chapters are the introduction. Section 2 is a section where it's the middle, it's the heart of Proverbs. It's all those short little sayings that we read out earlier. And we're going to kind of have a look at how we unpack some of those. But hey, before we get there, it's worth kind of checking back in, especially if you missed a week or two, that this is some of the stuff that we've learned from the first 9 chapters. You see, in the first 9 chapters, they're very much long dialogues of a father passing advice to his sons. And the kind of things he talks about is the fact that wisdom more than anything else is worth pursuing. Wisdom is worth more than gold because it helps you navigate life, all of life's challenges, all of life's decisions. And pursuing wisdom is going to set you up for life much better than just having a big golden inheritance or just being lumped with a lot of money. In fact, he says that actually life will go better for you if you're wise. Life will go worse for you if you're not. But not only will it be better for you, it'll be better for those around you. You will be a blessing. Proverbs and wisdom is very much about people and relationships and bringing good things, not just to you, but to those around you. And so that path to wisdom starts with the fear of the Lord. Starts with knowing humbly that you need help. You need God to understand how to live rightly in God's world. And so what it really sets up is this drama, right? There's this drama that happens in everyday life, a moral drama. This isn't just about kind of stupidity and being smart. It's actually about doing right and wrong. And there's this moral drama that plays out in Proverbs that's fought in the center of every human heart, but then played out on the small scale, on all the everyday little mundane things of life. So that's what Proverbs sets up for us in those first 9 chapters. Okay, here's the conundrum though. Here's the conundrum. The conundrum is that this second section of Proverbs, it's just like a whole series of tiny little life lessons. Tiny little life lessons which pack quite a lot of profound truth into each one of them. So we're going to actually, for this first section of today, we're going to unpack a little bit about how it is that Proverbs actually work. And then in the second section, we'll kind of take a theme, a bit of a bunch of Proverbs and unpack those along a thematic line. But I thought we'd actually start with this idea about how it is that Proverbs work. Okay? See, I don't know what proverb or saying or thing that kind of jumped to mind for you earlier when you were discussing with someone. There's lots of short little pithy proverbs and sayings out there that you can probably just name off the top of your head. See, maybe it was something like this: the early bird catches the worm. Now, there's quite a lot of truth contained in just that tiny little, 6-7 word saying. This idea that actually getting up early, doing things, don't leave things to the last minute. No, be proactive, take initiative, go and get out there early because the early bird catches the worm. That's a very short little kind of metaphor, image, visual picture for a very profound truth. And that's one of the challenges of Proverbs, that it contains a lot of truth in very few words. And often the way that Proverbs work is they are relating, they're kind of trying to use a metaphor, an image, a picture, something that's supposed to kind of help to jog our memories, help us to understand something and memorize this truth so that you can bring it out at the appropriate time. At that moment when you're just in bed and you know that you've got a big day ahead of you, and you can remind yourself that the early bird gets the worm. Or what about this one? For any of those lawn fanatics out there, always looking over the fence, just observing how nice the lawn is or how nice the garden is next door. We live next to some retirees who spend all of their time in the garden. So it doesn't matter how nice our lawn looks, it always looks better over the fence. That's a relatable thing. We're always desiring, envying, wanting what's over there instead of what we've actually got, appreciating what we have. You see, Proverbs, all Proverbs, both secular Proverbs and biblical Proverbs, work on this basis that actually you can contain a lot in just a few words. So even just reading one chapter of Proverbs, I don't know about you, but you just kind of become overwhelmed with the density of everything that's there. And there's just so much packed in to so little. But let me just pick out a couple of other things that are important as we think about Proverbs. It really brings out that there's a bit of a poetry to them, right? They often use things like alliteration, for example, right? That's kind of similar sounds repeating after each other. Here's another famous one. Birds of a feather flock together. Can anyone think of a smoother sentence in the English language? Just sort of just flows off the tongue nicely, doesn't it? Or what about this one? This is for those who always find it a bit scary, kind of putting your hand up to ask a question. He who asks is a fool for 5 minutes, but he who does not ask remains a fool forever. Doesn't that just kind of have a nice ring to it, a nice rhythm to it, and a good reminder at that moment where you're like, I really don't want to make a fool of myself and ask this question. Yeah? Better be a fool for 5 minutes and then spend the rest of your life knowing that thing, knowing the answer to that question, than to not. So how are we to unpack these Proverbs? What is it that we need to gather from all these tiny little lessons in life? Well, I'll give you a few quick things. You need to slow down. You can't just kind of plow your way through Proverbs and expect to be able to just suddenly be this bastion of knowledge. It's not like you're a computer that can just download all this information. In actual fact, what Proverbs often do is that they're appealing to our hearts, to our imagination. And so you need to slow down and to dwell on them and to unpack them. Now, I wanted to kind of take you through a couple of examples of how you might do that. You see, Proverbs in the Bible particularly like to use this thing called parallelism. Parallelism is when you put two ideas next to each other that kind of will help to highlight or contrast something about two different ideas. Here's a couple. Right? There's a contrasting kind of parallel here. Lazy hands make for poverty, but diligent hands bring wealth. Right? You kind of put two opposite things against each other, one which highlights the other. If you're lazy, you're often procrastinating. Well, you're never going to build up money, wealth, for whatever reason, but those who are diligent, who work hard, will be able to receive wealth and then be able to use that to actually bless others, bless your family. What about this next one? This is one of my favorites. As vinegar to the teeth and smoke to the eyes, so are sluggards to those who send them. For me, even in those moments where I feel like procrastinating for the 10th time, I need to remind myself. I remind myself not just for this truth to kind of get on with being productive, but actually, how does it work? It was appealing to my senses then, isn't it? That taste of vinegar, that kind of tartness, that sour hit, or when that smoke blows into your eyes when you're at the campfire and it just stings. That's what it's like to be a lazy worker to those who employ you. You're like a pain in the mouth or stinging to the eyes. And so Proverbs works like this. It works by appealing to our hearts, to our imagination, and as you slow down and as you unpack them, you're meant to sit there and feel it and to experience it, to feel the tension, to feel the foolishness of the foolish path, and to feel the wisdom and the benefits of the wise life. Now, that's actually a really important principle for anyone who's teacher, anyone who's in some form of, professionally you give advice. Maybe you're involved in a teaching ministry here at CPE. Maybe you're a parent teaching your children. Teaching involves much more than just information download, okay? See, there'd be a lot simpler, easier ways to communicate some of these truths, but by packaging it up in a particular way, actually it helps you to communicate, to memorize, to remember these truths, for someone listening to kind of gather that truth and to take it to heart and then to actually go and live it out. And that's an important space for us to be thinking through. It's not just about the content of your teaching, but the way in which you package it. Now, there's lots of ways that you might want to teach. You might want to teach through stories. Maybe you want to teach through metaphors, through pictures. Well, Proverbs is just another way of teaching in short, little, memorable lines that might appeal to your senses, your imagination in some way, and give you something, some little piece of practical, important, profound advice that will help you live the wise life. So what do we do then? What do we do when we've got a whole series of Proverbs here? Well, I think one of the ways is to start picking some out and concentrating on them. You're not meant to kind of sit there and unpack every single one. I think you'll go along and will naturally be drawn to particular ones. So pick that out, slow down, pull it apart. There's lots of ways to read Proverbs. Now you can read through Proverbs and get a feel for what Proverbs thinks is important. You can get the full scope of everything that goes on there in Proverbs. See, even in chapter 10, what do we find there? We saw a whole bunch of different Proverbs covering different topics. Your family, for example. A wise son brings joy to his father, but a foolish son brings grief to his mother. It's concerned about our integrity, the way we get what we want to get. Ill-gotten treasures have no lasting value, but righteousness delivers from death. Whoever walks in integrity walks securely, but whoever takes crooked paths will be found out. Right? This idea that actually if you do things the right way, you don't take shortcuts, you don't kind of do unethical means to kind of gain wealth or treasure or anything else. Actually, if you go that path, chances are you'll be found out. Chances are that is not going to last, but do things right. Don't cut corners. Do things diligently. And the chances are those things will last. And you yourself, life will go better for you. That actually also impacts our reputation. The name of the righteous is used in blessings, but the name of the wicked will not. Oh, there we go. Or obedience. The wise in heart accept commands, but a chattering fool comes to ruin. Or maybe one of the biggest themes in all of Proverbs, particularly in chapter 10, but actually all throughout Proverbs, is the way that we speak. Right, the mouth of the righteous is a fountain of life, but the mouth of the wicked conceals violence. Right, this idea that actually what your words say can actually bring life to people, and encouragement and appreciation and affirmation. But what does the mouth of the wicked do? Well, it flatters, conceals violence. It kind of will say things one way, but actually is meaning something else, and it'll do that kind of thing. It's a means of violence. See, Proverbs covers a whole range of different topics in daily life. So what I thought we'd do this morning, for the second half this morning, is that we'd pick out one topic and really unpack that. Now, this is maybe one of the smaller topics on Proverbs, but I think it's actually quite significant, right? It's all about the role of friends and mentors in growing wise. The role of friends and mentors in growing wise. Now, there in verse 17 in chapter 10, said this. Whoever heeds discipline shows the way to life, but whoever ignores correction leads others astray. See, there's kind of making a point that actually how we live affects those around us. Those who heed discipline, who live wisely, actually show others the way to life. But the ones who ignore correction, who are always very wise in their own lives, likelihood is that you will not only lead yourself astray, but actually lead others astray. Right? This is the idea in Proverbs that actually no man is an island. Everyone's kind of connected to each other. We all affect each other. In fact, I've heard it said out there that we are we're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Right? You think about that. So the people you spend the most time with, an average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And so that's something we should think about. How we affect others and how they affect us, how you choose your influences. In fact, as it goes on, it says this, chapter 12, verse 15. The way of fools seem right to them, but the wise listen to advice. There's this kind of idea that if you can surround yourself with wise older people and you're willing to accept their advice, life will go better for you. Well, take this one. Walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. Or, chapter 14, verse 7, stay away from a fool, for you will not find knowledge on their lips. Now, these past couple of years, I've got an official mentor for myself. So he's a mentor. He's someone who's about 10 years ahead of me. He's a pastor as well, so he understands this line of work and the world of church and all of that. And it's been one of the best things that I've had, right? Because we get to sit down. It's about every couple of months we catch up, and we catch up for a good afternoon, 2-3 hours, and we just talk life, talk marriage, kids, ministry, church. Working with people, dealing with pastoral issues. And what do? I just get to sit there and to learn, to bring my questions, to ask for advice, and to have the advice of someone just that one step ahead of me, passing that advice down to me. It's great. It's one of the most valuable things I think I've done in a while. So think about that for yourself. That somewhere out of those 5 people that you spend it with wise people. Maybe 1 or 2 of those people should be someone who's just that stage ahead of you in life, right? If you're a teenager, maybe it's your youth leader. Maybe if you're dating someone, you're thinking about getting married, well, maybe having that married couple to talk to. If you've just started working life, having someone who understands your particular area. If you're married with young kids, you're just trying to work out how to do life and navigate in the business of having these young people around you, finding someone who's that step ahead of you with older kids, and so on and so forth. The opposite is also true. Being aware of the negative influences in your life as well. So if you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, well, you don't want to spend too much time with fools who might lead you astray, people who might influence you. See, chances are that maybe somebody in your circle, your close circle, might have a negative influence on you. In the world of kind of social media influencers, chances are you might even have a social media influencer in there. You know, I remember a time where I actually had to stop watching my favorite TV show of all time. Right, Scrubs. Scrubs is one of my absolute favourite shows. You know, when I was a medical student, just getting to watch Scrubs, you get to learn. I mean, you learn medicine, but you also learn about how hospitals run. You learn about how people relate to each other. It's a great show, actually. I really enjoyed it. But there was a time, especially when I was a young single doctor, where I had to stop watching it. Because just part of the show was all about how the characters kind of get with each other and sleep with each other. Or they're in hospital kind of working, but then they kind of have this moment where they're gazing at the good-looking nurse over there and really having these little fantasy moments. And for this young single doctor, that was actually quite unhelpful. And so I actually had to stop watching it. But think about those 5 people, those 5 influences for you. Chances are in that circle are your friends. Your friends. Now, one of the things I love most about Proverbs is the way that it really upholds the value and the importance of friendships, okay? Of friendships. Now, have a look at this verse. Better is open rebuke than hidden love. Wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. You get the little sense there of what true friendship looks like? Sometimes true friendship actually looks like people being able to say things to you openly. In fact, it reminds me of a quote by Oscar Wilde. You might have heard of this before. True friends stab you in the front. Right? So your enemies will come, they'll stab you in the back when you're not looking. A true friend, though, might wound you in a positive way. They might actually bring something to you that you need to know. And I've had those friends in my life who've definitely brought things up with me, and I've really appreciated that. But as I was thinking through this about friendships, and I tracked them through time, I went, yeah, actually, you know what? In my younger years, I reckon I had friends, but it was the sort of friends which you go and have fun together, right? It's a very superficial kind of friendship, right? In fact, I think and maybe it's a guy thing, we kind of had this thing where you'd never want to admit weakness to them, because there's sort of always this one-upmanship going on within our friendship group. And there's kind of a bit of a jovial fun with that, as a lot of male friends can do. A lot of egos involved. But what does Proverbs tell us that true friends are? True friends are those who can, well, who are they? Well, they're trusted enough to actually tell you what you need to know. Or vice versa, to be a good friend means sometimes having to bring up something that might be potentially hard for someone to hear. But in the long run, it'll be good for them. Now, it shouldn't be the kind of case where someone sort of stands over you and is constantly judging you. I think that's the kind of thing. In fact, I think this sort of plays out in some of these other proverbs. Perfume and incense bring joy to the heart, and the pleasantness of a friend springs from their heartfelt advice. See, what do you need from that friend? What do you need from the truths and the wounds? Well, you need someone who brings that with a pleasantness, with a calmness, who brings that not as a way to kind of condemn you, but actually to, in a kind way, bring you to a knowledge of a truth that you might not have otherwise understood. Nor should it be all just one-way traffic. Verse 17 there, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. That actually a good friendship is one which you actually can say things to each other, and that you actually consistently, in a way, sharpening each other. Actually, you're knocking those hard edges off each other. You actually make each other sharper. You can do life better. When you can do that, when you have a place of safety, where you feel like you can be truthful and honest with each other, and you trust each other, that you've got each other's good in mind. And when you have that kind of relationship, you are sharpening each other. You are making each other better. So I want to ask, how often, when was the last time that you went and was honest with someone? Like real hard honest. Things that have been going really hard for you. When you got deep fears or struggles or desires or temptations. When was the last time you went and asked for genuine advice from your friends or from your mentors? When was it that you went, there's something coming up. I'm interested in that girl. I'm thinking about buying that house. I've got these struggles within my marriage. When have you kind of gone and brought that to others, opened up about them, in your life groups, in your prayer triplets, to your friends, to your mentors? When you do that, you are being wise. The journey on the path of wisdom, it's not a solo journey. It's not so you can just sit and just learn everything you can to learn, download all that information, and you will go well in life. Actually, Proverbs definitely presents this picture in which it's a community of people that become wise. As you walk with your friends, as you walk with your family, as you walk with others, hand in hand, encouraging each other to stick to that wise path, correcting each other when we're off path, giving each other affirmation and appreciation when we're actually doing things that are encouraging and helpful and good for you or for them. See, I think it comes down to this. True friends are close, they're compassionate, and they're candid. They're close, compassionate, and candid. People that you trust. People that you can enjoy spending time with to build that trust. But then as you do that, you can actually have the care and concern for each other. When things are going wrong, you'll jump in there for each other. But that you'll also bring truth and honesty into those relationships. You will say the words when they need to be said. See, I think this problem, this world in which we're very lonely, okay? We're very, very lonely. It's definitely a thing over the last 15, 20 years. We've become a very lonely society. And I don't think the problem is that we just don't have people to kind of do life and just be in community or to have friends. I think it's much deeper than that. It's actually that we just don't even have the people to share the deep aspects of life, to share what's really going on in your heart with somebody. You know, it's interesting, I was reading an article this week about how there really hasn't been any real big sitcoms in the last kind of 5-10 years or so, right? People are going back and they're streaming Friends and The Office and Modern Family and some of these old sitcoms from many years ago. And part of that, they reckon, is, well, we just don't have friends anymore. That's not a space that we relate to as much as we used to. So much of our connection with each other is not in families or sitting at cafes together, it's through the internet. And we've lost that connection with each other. Dear friends, I want to ask you, church, think about this. Think about the time and the spaces. Where are you investing time into your friendships? Friendships of trust, of vulnerability. Friendships where you can spend time with and you know that you will receive the word that you need to hear from them because they love you. Now, I have to say I'm not that great at it myself. I'm definitely someone who kind of neglects that side, gets busy with family, gets busy with work and ministry and so on and so forth. But as I read Proverbs, I see a real importance that this is not something that you can ignore. In fact, did you know that Jesus spoke very warmly about his friends? John chapter 15. Jesus said this, "My command is this, love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no more than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command. I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends, for everything that I learned from my Father I have made known to you." What does Jesus say? He's actually saying that you, disciples, can be Jesus' friend. And I don't think that's just for the 12 disciples that he has in front of you. I think he means this for all of his disciples, that as he has made known or what he knows from his Father, that he has passed it on to his disciples, that they would know what it means to be Jesus' friend. But not only that, Jesus says that he himself models what it means to be a friend. Just as a good friend will lay down their life for others, what do we see in Jesus? We see the friend who goes to the cross. In fact, this is the day before he is to go to the cross. See, Jesus looks with utmost compassion on his friends. He invites us to be his friend. He says, "You are my friends if you do what I command," as we understand him and his particular role in helping us to understand who God is. As he invites us into that relationship to truly fear God, to actually know the God who made this world, to live in the right way. As friends of Jesus, we can know everything that he knows. He says, "As I have called you friends, for everything that I learned from my Father, I have made known to you." See, friends, it's through Jesus that we can know God. Through Jesus that we can be friends with God. In a few short moments, I'm actually going to invite us all to take communion together. And what communion is really an invitation to be friends with God, to kind of share at his table. Just as you might go and have a meal with your friends, so Jesus invites you to his table. And he invites you not because you're perfect, but because you're imperfect, and because he has loved you by laying down his life for you. Indeed, Jesus actually invites us to his table. And if you're not a Christian here today, I want you to know this, that Jesus wants to be friends with you. He wants to invite you to join in his table. Now, if you know you're not a Christian and that you're just not ready yet, then I don't want you to feel any pressure to do something that actually isn't true for you, okay? But if you'd like to receive his invitation, I'll also invite you to take the Lord's Supper. The host team will start handing that out to us. But just to say this, that as we take this little cup of juice and that little piece of bread, there's nothing kind of special or magical about it. It represents something that is important and significant, though. It represents Jesus' body broken for us and his blood poured out for us. That we made ourselves enemies of God, and yet God invited us back in to be his friend through the breaking of his body and of his blood. Now, before we do that though, one of the key aspects of relationship with God is this. It involves confession. It involves confessing that actually too often we have chosen the wrong path. That too often we have walked the foolish path and we have done things that we ought not to have done.